Okay. Get this party started. So, January 9th for the three of us, anyways. So, I believe the opening topic is that there was the court case for Trump being on the ballot in Colorado specifically, correct?
Supreme Court case.
Supreme Court case? So,
about his immunity.
Okay, but Colorado had already bumped him
yeah.
off, and then now went to Supreme Court to see if that was legal, I guess, basically?
Pretty much, yeah, to see if they have the right to rule on it, or right to, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I guess we'll get into that, and we'll just see what happens in the midst of that conversation. So is there a verdict then with the Supreme Court? Do we know yet, or...?
I tried to look it up right beforehand, and I didn't find anything.
I don't think they've made a decision, but the way it was, going, it didn't look like Trump's team was relaying a solid argument. He kept repeating the same thing, and they kept, well, I'm not asking about that, and so he just kept going back to the same thing. And but the whole thing about the big one was, could a president, as a presidential executive action, have Team SEAL 6 assassinate his political opponent and not be held accountable? And essentially, he said yes.
Wait, what? I don't...
Connected to iMac.
Talk about there.
So
SEAL Team 6?
So they're trying to get to the whole point of immunity, right? And saying, because Trump's defense was that he can't be
iMac disconnected
through Congress because they have to do an impeachment and then the Senate, and that's the only way that then he could be held accountable and then take action against. But so the judge was like, well, what if the president, with an executive action, because everything's immune, all actions, he got the Team SEAL 6 or the Navy SEALs team to go assassinate his political opponent right before, just assassinate him, and then he resigns. So has no time to be impeached. Is he, by his logic, he's still immune? Because he never was impeached and then kicked out by the Senate. So that's like, stop. So basically a president, the last minute, could do some crazy crime.
Oh, you're talking about, you're saying hypothetically.
Yeah, there's where is
okay, I'm like, did I miss some crazy story or something?
No, this is what the judge brought up. So if is he immune then? And then basically the Trump's attorney was like, yes. So... Because
I'll tell you. Sorry.
Oh no, you can go.
I'll tell you the from my perspective, what bothers me about this, and I'm not a Trump supporter. I didn't vote for the guy. I have my issues with him, but setting aside the nuances of the 14th Amendment and setting aside the videos that have been edited, because he did say, to peacefully protest. He did say that day. A lot of the media edited that part out, and he also said it on Twitter, and that got deleted. But setting that aside, what's really what's dark about this is that he's being punished without being found guilty. And as far as I understand, he hasn't even been charged with a crime. And that's why right after all this happened.
So that's the thing about the 14th Amendment is that it's self executing, so you don't have to technically.
You have to be charged and found guilty with a crime, even for the 14th Amendment.
Not for the insurrection. That's what the judges are saying.
Yes, you do. Now, that's always been the case with this. That has always been the case with this. You have to be found guilty. It's due process. That's the whole defense, is that you have to be found. Now, the Supreme Court may vote.
Well, I guess they did. I guess he was considered. Maybe in Colorado is where they deemed him that he was held accountable, or they basically said he was part of an insurrection.
Well, so Colorado doesn't have jurisdiction.
over their state. They do on their voting,
but not with because that took place. It wasn't in Colorado, so Colorado wouldn't have jurisdiction over this.
That's not what they're suing about. They're suing about. It doesn't matter where he did the insurrection, as long as he helped and aided and abetted it. He violated the 14th Amendment. So,
well, we could get into the nuances of the 14th Amendment and like
that's exactly what they're doing,
and about the Civil War and all that, and that's fine. Like, I'm not even necessarily like I've even found some of his defense kind of weak on that stuff about like how does it phrase it? The officer, like does
the office of the office it's anyone holding office and having pledged an oath to the Constitution. He's also saying he never said an oath.
Well, that thing came about, I think it was written in 1860. It was for the Civil War. And interestingly enough, I don't know if it was the last time, I think it was, but the last time I think 10 states tried to pull Abraham Lincoln off the ballot during the Civil War. And my whole issue with this is like, and we'll see what they say. At the end of the day, it is what it is. The Supreme Court holds the last judgment. But I think that that's incredibly un-American. To do this without him being charged and found guilty with something, and I think people are doing this just because they're trying to throw shit at him. I don't think that he really did engage in insurrection. I think that there's a lot of evidence of him saying, well, there is evidence. There's videos of him saying, to peacefully protest that day.
There's also videos of other stuff like saying to encourage it to actually do things, get things done. So, I mean, just because he said some, I don't know. I know I've seen the clips, but I don't have it up top of there's others. I don't know exactly what he said, but just because he said protest peacefully doesn't mean he didn't say something else later or before that encouraged it. And the other thing they're going with is that he knew about the insurrection as it was happening, and he waited however long he did. And the fact that he waited so long is part of the reasons they're also saying he helped aid it because he took so long to tell him to stop. I don't
think you and I are going to agree on this, and that just is what it is.
We won't.
For me, it's just like you have to follow due process. You just do. I mean, that's an American thing, and that's really the reason.
They've gotten rid of due process for plenty of things throughout American history. Like during the Civil War or during a lot of big wars, they stopped due process. It's happened quite a few times in American history. Like, to
do this that doesn't mean it's okay, but to do this for a president, and the whole reason this is happening is because people don't like it, and we've sanctioned.
No, and because he helped in the insurrection. There's a lot that he did. He also bankrupted, added like $6 trillion to the debt. But I mean, so we'll never agree on it. But the fact that he helped, and that whole insurrection was trying to overthrow the peaceful power or peaceful transition of power, which is an American thing.
I'd be very curious what else he said outside of peacefully. Like, I'm curious if maybe next time you can, because I wasn't aware that he said anything that was volatile. But I'd be curious. But, the idea that you're going to the way I see this is we are at a point in this country where we're so divided that doing this is like just throwing shit on the walls. And it's not going to help anything. I don't think the Supreme
this started when he did the whole January 6th. This is all because of him. Like, this started, he threw shit on it at the start because he constantly said he was never going to, if he lost, he was always going to question it. That's always what he does. He's just a narcissist who wants power. And so he knows he's guilty. That's why, like, why else would he need immunity if he's immune from everything? And he thinks that. Why is he so strict on this? Because he knows he's guilty for doing a bunch of shit.
My understanding from what he had said that day was I watched a little bit of when they had like the quote unquote hearing or whatever with like Liz Cheney, I think was the head of it. Was it a hearing or what was that? But from my understanding, like one of the things he said that they were jumping on was that he had, I guess, literally said, which I'm obviously paraphrasing right now, something along the lines of just like go down there and take back your country or something like that. And from my understanding, that's what they were saying was like the incitement to violence, and that was a clear indication. I think that is. I think that's why it made sense to me when they said the argument is about like what was his intention when he said that, and that's why that probably wasn't going to fly. Is because how can you prove intention with something?
So one of the things is they had all those like magnetic things to look for guns, right? Sure. And he was freaking out because like why aren't there more people? Why aren't more of the people here? It's like, well, a lot of them have guns. Like, well, they're not here to shoot me. So he knew what he was doing. Like he knew like what was happening. Like them not getting in. Yes, there were a lot of people that stayed outside the perimeter because they had the security with the magnetic things to look for him, and so there's conversation between him. Yeah, there's conversation with I think it's him and Mark Meadows, like texts and stuff like that, going back about this. Him actually saying that.
One of my concerns with this conversation was that it was just going to fall into, the nuances of this thing in which, we're not going to get to the bottom of at this. Yeah. I mean, we could talk about, whatever about any president. And one of the things that's frustrating to me is that the amount of damage that was done from riots is nothing compared to what happened in 2020 during the BLM riots and all that. I don't
know. One was trying to stop the go overthrow the Constitution. Another one was, a bunch of people saying, hey, we're getting discriminated at a higher percentage. And so it's taking
millions of dollars worth of public and private property. I don't think.
I mean, when you push a rock in a hard place, you when you're like that, you don't care.
They were throwing childish fits. It was.
Dude, there were cops. There were cops shooting innocent bystanders and laughing at it.
I'm sure there were, but
so
overall, I mean, this is a city that I lived in for a long time. Yeah. I saw a lot of this happen. I saw a lot of the buildup. I've been around. In fact, you guys know a girl that joined Antifa. She used to party with it. She moved up to Portland and kind of just radicalized. But it's people that have been told their whole life and buy into the idea that they're oppressed. So then everybody's an enemy, and then you have the right to.
I don't think that's. I don't accept that. That's like.
I know you don't.
That's the problem. Like because. You don't have to be told you're oppressed. You can see it. Like there's actions. Actions speak louder than words. So that's the thing. It's been building up because they've been seeing it for years and years and years. So
everybody knows that there's issues with police brutality. Nobody denies that. But the problem is that you do tell people that, that they're stuck. Blame it on every other rich person. Don't take any type of responsibility. And then your life goes nowhere. But
that's just that's an awful overbroad, like overgeneralization of a whole movement.
We're talking about the whole country. There's a lot of people that you have to speak a little broadly, but we're not going to get to the bottom of any of that. And I was kind of concerned that this would just fall into that. But my concern is that we're just circumventing due process, and that's a very scary thing. In the way that if you're an attorney and you're going into court, whether you're a prosecutor or defense attorney, whatever you are, one of the ways that you make an argument, if you ever see an attorney talk about looking up case law or what's the case law on this, they go by precedent. This is where common law comes from. This started back in like the 15th century in England or something, and we've adopted a piece of it. But when you set a precedent like this, when the Supreme Court, I don't think they will allow this. I think that there's enough people that understand that this is laughably ridiculous. But if it did, this could set a very dangerous precedent for the future of the country. That's my big concern about it. And again, I mean, I'm not a Trump supporter. I did not vote for him, but I think that the way I see this is it's people. I think it's just get him out of here. Just get him out of here. I don't care what you have to do. Get him out of here. That's how I see it.
I don't see it as a problem for what he did. I don't think I think that's a survival mechanism to, like, especially for a country. Like, if you see a guy who's going to potentially wants to come in,
found guilty in court,
for what he's actually done, like it's pretty evident and obvious.
Yeah, but you go to court. You don't think that should happen?
I don't think he should. Like, he's a traitor. I don't think they should get you lose your due process.
No, I completely disagree. You give due process as part of what it is. Eric, what do you think?
Well, I guess I don't know some of these parts of it, I guess. As far as like the traitor bit, in the sense of like, is that in relation to the documents that he had?
No, it's because they didn't have to go case, and they went through precedent. Sorry, that was a dick move. But they went back and looked through like treasonous stuff to relate to it, and said like for what he did, it was treasonous actions. So which would fall under that would include it. So he has been.
I think I missed
somewhere. I don't know which court it was, but he has been through their courts, been found guilty of that.
Could you be specific?
Treason. I'm sorry. I think I missed
of treason. Yeah.
What was the example though? I think I missed that.
It was. I think. I don't know. It was in the Colorado Supreme Court or something because he. I think they went to look for, was it treason, or since they haven't had the traitors, like a lot of basically this. No, there wasn't. Man, I have to look it up. I was gonna do it the other day, but I just forgot. I watched a bunch of shit.
It's all good.
But no, there's stuff out there. I mean, I can send you what I watched.
It's all good. I'm just trying to understand, I guess,
but
also like where my ignorance lands too. Because is that part of why Colorado then made their verdict was based off of this thing you're talking about?
I believe so. I believe that was the argument. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll have to look more into the Colorado case and why they even did what they did. Honestly,
yeah, that's where it is. Yeah, I don't remember which group, but it's a bunch of Republicans.
Could you share a specific case on our text message?
I'll have to go back and watch and look at and figure it out, but I don't know off the top of my head.
If I'm wrong too, I want to know. I would you need to know specific cases to cite things.
Right, but this is the trick too, is because I agree with Dave in the sense of like you do need due process before you're just like you're putting someone in jail or you're taking someone off the ballot or whatever it is, whoever you are. But yeah, I think that's a good point, Brian, that if he has been found guilty somewhere, that it is part of the conversation, right? We can't neglect that was part of the conversation. Of course, what the Supreme Court has to say about it will obviously weigh into it. I was hoping that C-SPAN would have because they have oral arguments for some of the cases happening right now for other things that I hadn't even heard of. So I was hoping that they would have that recorded and playing today, but no luck, unfortunately. But yeah, I guess that's just the question to see. The other part too of like what David brought up too, as far as like the worry that this is like politically motivated in the sense of like trying to get someone out of the race. I think this is like the hardest thing ever because it seems to me that the left is like, well, no one's above the law, so you have to have someone go through due process and then see if they're found guilty and everything. But then on the other side, on the right, is very much just like, well, this seems like lots of people have done bad things in office, and now we're deciding that we want to prosecute someone for it.
But this bad thing is something completely different. That's completely like.
Well, go ahead, explain.
Like it's just like he essentially wanted to have them come in and put him like take over the election and completely rig it to him so he could cheat and be president. Like, I mean.
I think that if we're just...
That just goes against everything about the democracy and what the country stands for.
I think that if you believe that we don't need due process, like it's just self-evident, I just don't think we're going to see eye to eye on that. To me, that's the...
Well, just the way the 14th Amendment is written, it's self-executing.
Where does it say you don't... Where does it say that?
I'm not a lawyer. I don't. But everything the lawyers that I've watched say it's like it's self-executing. Go look up the 14th Amendment and being self-executing.
I don't see anywhere in there where it says that. I'd be curious because I listened.
I mean, it's not going to say like you're going to have to.
Well, I'll look up real fast
from a certain case, but
yeah, I'd be curious specifically what you're talking about. I mean, I just think that. To me, if you don't think that he needs to go through due process, and that just is what it is. We're not going to agree on that. But
so there's 5 sections to the 14th Amendment, so it's a little too much for me just to like sit here and bore everyone to death to read.
Oh yeah.
But
he's Section 3. They're using Section 3.
Section 3? Okay, so I can read that part real fast just so we're on the same page. Section 3, no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, or as an officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, but Congress may, by vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Okay, so that's specific to insurrection, very much so, in Section 3. I'm trying to see the due process bit in here, though.
Yeah, I'm curious what the self-executing part is.
Right, because I guess that's just saying that it's not saying either in this section, at least, anyways. I would assume that if they're found guilty of it, necessarily just like if they're believed to be part of it.
Yeah, because you can interpret. You can't just say this guy's guilty. Look at this. Like, you put anybody on trial. That's how it works. And I mean, I agree, Brian, that there have been times where we haven't always done that. But
I think there's some certain laws that they have ruled on being self. I don't think this is the only one that is self-executing. I think there's some other obscure ones too, but
yeah, I'm curious what you're talking about.
What does that mean? Self-executing.
It means you don't have to essentially be charged for the crime because it's self-execute. I don't know how to the legalese of it, but
I get you.
That's
okay. Yeah, because I mean, I guess like that would just be my assumption is like what I'm reading. Yeah, it just seems like explicitly just like if this is the case, but the question is like how do you establish that this is the case? And then my assumption would be you establish it off of a conviction through the law ultimately. Now I'm not a lawyer either. I don't know how that process works. So like I guess the word you just said, Brian, in the sense of like it just. If it is the case, it is the case. But yeah, I don't know how you would establish that. I mean, if you're Bill Clinton and you're going to argue what is, I feel like there would be, there'd be a lot of wiggle room to like argue what certain words mean. I know how hard lawyers get over certain words. You know what I mean? So
that's why it gets so fucking frustrating because they'll go like, well, is it what the framers intended, or is it actually verbatim, word for word?
Right.
Or
his attorneys are going to argue, and to be honest, I think this is a little silly. I listened to a real long interview with one of his lawyers the other day, and I like most of what she said. I agreed with most of what she said, but the idea that the 14th Amendment doesn't apply to the president seems kind of silly to me. You know, I'm a first-year pre-law student, so who am I to talk? But to me, it seems like if the argument you're going to make should be that it wasn't insurrection or that he needs to be charged, which that is part of what they're doing. But the idea that, you know, and I've heard people on the far left say, rightly so, that it's kind of ridiculous to act like that doesn't apply to the president. Technically, when it was written for the Civil War, and it wasn't written for the president. The idea that it wouldn't apply to the president is kind of silly.
Well,
it mentions president in it.
Yeah, it says it's Section 3. Like I just read, it says like the 10th word is or elector of president. So yeah, that seems like a silly argument for. I'm sure is that girl that's his attorney, right?
The hot one.
Yeah, she's pretty hot.
Yeah,
but I feel like that's. I'm sure she's paid very well to not see those 3 words. But anyways.
Well, they went over it line by line. But anyways, my thing is like it's just obvious that if you want to, accuse somebody of something, you can accuse them of something. But you don't get to just do whatever you want without putting them through due process. And my concern is that you're setting a precedent that's very dangerous for the future. And even going beyond that, like, I think we're just at a real dangerous place in this country. And
we are, because I don't think any presidential election after this is anyone's going to trust it. Right. So
no, for sure.
That's screwed over. Yeah.
That's a really unfortunate.
No, it is, and I worry. Worldwide, this is the largest election in history, the most elections historically worldwide. There's more elections happening all over the world this year than ever has in the history of the world.
Is that just like stars aligning, or is that like by design or something?
No, it's the stars aligning from what I understand.
Oh, wow.
But it's
because everything voting does it on like so many like 4 year like even numbers or something. There's few of them are like odd numbers, so
it's such a rocky.
It's crazy
place.
though, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that doing something like this is very dangerous. And I think no matter which way it goes, I could see either side getting violent over it.
Yep.
And
that's the problem.
Especially living out here, I'll probably talk about this too much to some of my friends out here, but like I really am concerned with how this year specifically is going to go. It's going to be rocky. It's going to be bumpy for sure. But, it's not, the world is not getting better lately. I mean, it may not seem like it down there, but there's places in this country where it's very bad. And,
I know.
Dallas had a little bit during the George Floyd riots, but, what happened to Portland up here in 2020, I mean, the amount of just shit that they whole small businesses were thrown under. They were just destroyed because people threw a little bitch fit. And I could see that happening again. And one of the effects of that is that businesses move out. There's mass migration to other places, which is why everybody's leaving California. There's a bunch of big businesses that left. LL Bean, I think, was one of them that left Portland recently. Because it's just, and that's part of what happens. And other places will become the new Hollywood or whatever. But it's going to be a rough year anyway. So I think that when you do this, it'll be great for our conversations. That's for sure.
Yeah,
but,
I certainly don't agree with either of the riots. I understand where, I guess, obviously both sides are coming from, in the sense of like why they did what they did, feeling justified on either front ultimately. But I certainly resonate more with, I know it's easier said than done necessarily, but I do resonate more with like the MLK version of that, of just like, you can't be fine. It's all peaceful. I even like the way he would phrase stuff about just like, like racist whites and everything, the sense of like, these are our brothers, but they're just sick. I liked that phrasing of it, because it was still calling them our brothers and still understanding that we're all humans. It was just this idea of like they don't understand something, they're sick, they're bothered, they have to be kind of healed, if you will. So I think that's more of the way to go about all of this.
You never have the right to hurt another person unless it's in self-defense. Bottom line, you can never do that.
Right,
and I don't care what you're.
It's all about how effective it is too. But it's even like the Dave Chappelle skit that was really funny. You talked about like the Me Too movement thing, where he's like, I agreed with what you guys were doing, just not about how you went about it. Because like MLK didn't say, okay, everyone get on the bus but wear matching outfits. He said like, no, like get off the bus. Like that's how you make changes. Like you you don't use the system anymore ultimately. So I think that is a more productive way. It's what it's all about. It's the production. It's like, is it going to be constructive or destructive? And I understand people want to just tear everything down, but if everything's torn down, what are you gonna? What did you win whenever all the fighting's done? Except just a pile of rubble. At that
exactly.
Point,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just it is silly, and I mean, like up here, who are you fighting against? Everybody agrees with you.
Right.
But I mean, we all got issues that we're angry about. I just don't think you can. It's just childish. You're throwing a little bitch fit, and both sides do it. I think the left has been way more aggressive about it, but I just don't think that you. I mean, I say this just in my own personal life. You don't have the right to hit anybody. You can't touch another person without their permission unless somebody's physically threatening you. And I mean, I wish that we would just understand that. I mean, I think MLK is a great example. He was really good at it. I mean, it's him versus Malcolm X, right? Malcolm X believed you could be violent. But MLK was like, you gotta do this through peace, and that's why people remember him more.
Right. It's the harder way to go, but it is the way to go. Once again, I think it's all about just like being pragmatic in the sense of like that's just the way it's gonna. It's even like with religion too. It's like what the argument, right, is that religion is frustrating because of all these people that just tell you to be good and tell you to follow God's rules, but you see them doing all the sins, right, breaking all the commandments and stuff like that. It's just like, I'm gonna find your belief more believable if I see you walking the walk and not just talking the talk ultimately.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's a phrase my mom used to use that Christians give Christianity a bad name.
Yep.
That's good. Yeah.
Right. And that's another thing too. Is I think we talked sometimes about. It's hard not to, right? Because you hear someone say something ridiculous, and it's just you can't. You don't want to quite ignore it because if it turns into a bigger thing, you got to watch out for it. But it's certainly something that happens on both sides where some random person says something, and like we want to say that is a representative of the entire ideology, whatever it is, left, right, or even just bigger things than that. Ultimately, so I think it's hard to kind of get away from that. But yeah, I don't know. But do you know, Brian? Like, so was it today the hearing? They just haven't come to a conclusion yet.
Yeah, they had the hearing today. It's all recorded. There's no video of it, but there is like an audio recording because they can't have that that's all they can have in the appeals court. So you can hear the whole thing. I don't remember how long it was, like an hour or 2 hours or something like that. I don't remember, maybe longer. But they have it all recorded for you to listen to if you want.
Yeah, I'll have to find it because it's so weird to me that C-SPAN didn't have that because I felt like that would have been. Because like they have one, but like I said, there's a couple of things on there. They have this one. It's like Campos Chavez versus Garland oral argument. Supreme Court hears oral argument. Consolidated case on immigration law and removal order proceedings. I was like, well, that's certainly important, but like, where's the Supreme Court hearing as well? It seems.
Well, I believe it's the Colorado Supreme Court.
Oh,
no, it's the United States Supreme Court.
Then for the hearing today?
I believe so. Yeah.
That's a good question to ask, though.
Or it was an appeals court, but it wasn't like the actual Supreme Court.
Well, the Supreme Court acts as an appeals court for a state Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. You don't have anywhere else to go, so the United States Supreme Court will act as appeals for that.
But it was none of the members of the Supreme Court were on this appeals. It was like these 3 women. I have no clue who they were.
That were the justices. You're saying were 3 women?
The judges. There were 3. I don't know if they were just 3, but yeah.
Huh. Special counsel.
Can you guys still see me?
No.
Nope. You went away.
I don't fucking know what's going on with this thing.
What did you say? It was like $150 laptop?
Yeah,
like refurbished?
Yeah, it was.
That's what happened.
There we go. Okay.
Right, that's right.
There we go.
I think also it's an interesting point you had said earlier, Bryant, too, in the sense of like, because that is obviously a talking point, is that, lots of presidents have done bad things before, but I guess that's the point, is that this one is different because it wasn't so much doing bad things, but it was more pointedly the attempt to overthrow everything. Is that the argument, I guess?
Allegedly.
Yeah, like,
allegedly.
Yeah. To take over, essentially, destroy one of the whole meanings and foundations of our country and democracy.
I think that's a fair argument. I think that I hadn't heard before. That I think I wish people were talking about that more specifically, because I do think it is a good question to ask, like why now and not before. And if that's the answer, I think that should be more part of the conversation. So we're not having fighting straw men, but we're fighting steel men, right? So,
wait, say that again. The first part of that?
I don't remember the first part, I guess, but just in the sense of I think that would be better if people were having that conversation, because what I've heard is just people are asking why now, and obviously the answer, well, maybe not obviously, but the answer most people are going to is because it's political. But if the argument of why now has more of a reason behind it, I think that is a more honest conversation to be having. That's more of a steel man argument than a straw man argument. It's I think I watched
why is this all happening right now, at the timing as this close to the election or something?
Well, no, just why,
I'm confused on what you're saying too.
Yeah, why is it happening to Trump more so than this year? Why is it I think that's that people are asking that question of why is it happening?
Well, it had they had to build the cases, get all the they wanted to make sure they had a solid case. So there's a lot that would happen. There's a lot of things they had to go through. So it's got to take time. And then since they've been doing the course, now there's been a lot of delays, and that's what delayed, push things back. So things are happening, there's a lot of things why that's happening. So they needed to build the case, get all.
They didn't build the case because he didn't go to court over it.
I understand that part. What I was trying to say more so is I think the point you made is something that should be part of the larger conversation that I feel like people are neglecting in order to fight a straw man opposed to a steel man. Because I was about to say is I watched this interview with Jordan Peterson and Michael Malice talking about communism and the faults of communism and stuff like that. There's obviously a long list of that. But I thought it would be a better conversation if you were attacking the things that communism attacks about capitalism. I think that would make a stronger argument of why capitalism is better than communism, because you could easily argue against anything and say why this thing is stupid for all these reasons. But I think what you're trying to actually do is say, why is my idea better based off of their criticisms of my idea? I think that's a stronger conversation to have.
Is that the most recent one with the one that from a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, it's pretty recent. Yeah. Does that make any sense?
They kind of.
Not really. I'm still kind of confused.
Okay. I'm sorry if I'm not articulating this very well, I guess. I guess the point I'm trying to say is I feel like a lot of people have straw man arguments where they're almost neglecting certain points that people are making in order to make their idea seem better, which I think is bad actors, in bad faith arguments ultimately. So I think that's what I'm trying to do, Brian, whenever we have these talks too, is get your perspective, because you're talking about stuff I haven't heard of that I feel like people are neglecting, maybe purposefully, maybe not, but I think it needs to be part of the conversation to actually come to a conclusion about. Does that make more sense, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, well,
it's just the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. So that's who did it today, and it was one was so 3 judges, 1 by Bush, 2 by Biden. So I don't think they've made a ruling yet.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I was hoping we'd hear by now, but I'm not surprised we haven't. I don't know how long it usually takes.
It could take. It could go overnight, or it could be a week or longer, because they have to write up a thing and go through their stuff. Some of these appeals have got this way of 100-page write up of what the laws and all this shit. So it could take a while.
It would be interesting. I have never thought about this until just now, but if you read court cases, it's almost like you have to learn how to read it. But I haven't actually thought about this. You do, again, have to cite case law and statutes. I would be curious to read if they do vote him out. I'd be very curious to read that. It never occurred to me to think how a Supreme Court writes that stuff. I can only imagine it would be public. I can't imagine they would keep that private. But.
No, it's public.
Talk about a stressful job being on the Supreme Court.
I kind of like the idea of that, because I feel like no one's perfectly impartial or unbiased or anything, but I think it's a high bar to strive for, to be objective and to try and be a really good judge. I think it's probably one of the better things that someone can do with their life is be that kind of person. So
supposedly the CIA, I've heard both sides of this, but supposedly the CIA is pretty good about it. I've also heard the exact opposite, but I've heard that they're very good about staying apolitical and bipartisan. What's his name? Mike Baker, who's on Rogan all the time. Anytime anything big happens, Rogan has this guy on. It's really interesting because he never answers a question because he can't, but he talks about that. because that's your job, right? Your job is to be, impartial.
Yeah, it's what's the law.
Yeah, I think right. So I'm seeing the same thing too, where it's a court of appeals for DC circuit. So it doesn't seem to me like it actually was the U.S.
Because I think the Supreme Court said no, you have to go through the lower courts first before you get to us. Because I think they wanted to go straight to it. I don't remember who sent it. Maybe Trump asked for it, or I don't remember who did. But like the Supreme was like, no, it's got to go to the appeals court first.
Right. I think that makes more sense too, because you don't want to go too fast to like the end judgment, right? Like I think that's a good process of like going through these different people to see like all the arguments and what makes the most sense. And like the Supreme Court should be like that last, like, okay, like no one can figure it out, like we're gonna have to. So
Yeah, I'm confused too, because if a state Supreme Court rules somewhere, the appeals process is going directly to the federal Supreme Court. Maybe there's another step in there I'm not aware of.
No, I think that's after this one. When
maybe there's a middle. Because that was, I remember I looked it up when this happened. I wasn't sure what the answer was, but if a state Supreme Court needs to, or something needs to be appealed, where would you go? And
that's when it starts going to the federal Supreme Court, and then there's an appeals. There's a few stages before it actually gets to the Supreme Court. You got a few more levels of boss levels to get through before you get to them.
That's right. Which if that's the case too, then this is by no means close to being finished, I would say. So I guess even if we do hear something tomorrow or the end of this week as far as like what the appeals court is.
It'll let us know. It could go like if they say that he has immunity or whatever, then he doesn't need to appeal to go to the Supreme Court, and that changes a lot of stuff.
That's true.
But if they say he isn't immune and everything, then Trump's going to appeal it and ask for it to go to the Supreme Court.
It's going to be weird, man. It's going to be pretty interesting how this plays out for sure. I mean, again, this happened in the Civil War with Lincoln, and I think that's the only time it's happened since.
What
could be wrong.
What happened with Lincoln, though? Like, did he get back on the ballot with those 8 states, or what happened there?
I think it was 10 states. Yeah, he did. It was the South tried to, he wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, and they didn't like that, so they tried to pull him off. I didn't read very much on this, but I was listening to something where they were talking about it, and if I'm understanding right, that's been the last time that it happened. I could be wrong. I know that we've also sanctioned other countries for doing this. I heard that today.
So,
I haven't done a lot of research on it.
Okay, so that's part of that. The math. Something was adding up about that. I was like, so the Civil War started in 1861. It went to 1861 to 1864.
1866 was. Go ahead. 1866 was when they tried to pull him off.
Oh, after the So after the Civil War.
I believe so.
Okay, because the math's interesting. Let me see.
I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on this.
Because I thought the way you phrasing it sounded like it was before the Civil War. That kind of that's what helped lead to it. That's where I thought you were trying to go with that.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I could be wrong. I don't think that's the case. It was just I use that as an example because it's a time in our history when we were so divided that we tried to pull shit like this. But it was obviously Lincoln was not a popular guy with the South.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been whenever he was, if he was, when was he elected, and then when did he run again? I guess it would be that. So maybe 18. No, you know what? 1866 was when the 14th Amendment was written. I'm getting my dates mixed up, I believe.
I'm gonna have to look the one about the ballot thing, because a few little things I'm seeing right now says that wasn't a real thing. But I'll have to do some more research into that one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm mistaken, which is possible. I checked a couple different sources on that. Yep.
So I guess my question then would be, so if he's off the ballot now in Colorado, and this is going through the appeals process, and if this process takes longer than, November 15th, is that election day, is that right?
November the 2nd, or the first Tuesday in November, I think.
Oh, the first Tuesday in November? Okay. So, but if the process takes till then, I guess this is all speculation, right? But like, I mean, would he have to go back on the ballot then if it's not decided, or do we know how that would play out?
It'll be decided by then. Yeah. They're gonna push it through.
Yeah.
But what I don't understand is because it's Maine too, and then wasn't Michigan or somebody trying?
There
to
are a few other ones. Yeah, there are a few other ones. Yeah.
I think it was 1860. But
so I mean, if it was the election of 1860, that makes sense.
1866 was in my mind because we were talking about the 14th Amendment, and I think the 14th Amendment was written in 1866. But I think it was the election of 1860 was when. I just found a bunch of stuff on it. I'll read it later. Must read Alaska. I got to get going and have burgers in a minute.
Something on a lighter note, crazier note. What about the whole this first round of Epstein files being released?
Oh.
On a lighter note.
Yeah, I've read a little bit about it just to see if there were any names dropped and everything. I've seen a couple things, but I know Trump and Clinton were brought up, but they were not said to have had any foul play, but just that they were involved with him and stuff like that. But
there's
a great Always Sunny in Philadelphia skit about that, where Frank, he's like, he was there, was like, we were snorkeling. I didn't know 95% of is snorkeling resort, and the 5% is that, and that's all they ever think about. it was hilarious. I'm like, oh, that's great.
Right, you would think on an island there'd be a lot to do, right? For sure, yeah. Mm-hmm. But there were, I think, they had named a couple CEOs of companies, I think, that had done some wrongdoing that were in the files. Mm-hmm. But
did you see Bill Gates' wife's Bill Gates' wife was interviewed? What's her name?
Recently?
Melinda.
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah, and I saw it the other day. I think it was recent. And she was talking about the first time she met Epstein. She said it was just. Who knows? She's saying this in hindsight, right? But she said that it was just creepy, and she didn't like how. I didn't know they were divorced.
Yeah.
But
they got divorced a while. Yeah.
That was a big one, man.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she got a lot of money. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I don't think much about Bill Gates. I know that everybody hates him. I never cared. But supposedly, yeah, he was. Who knows? One of the things that bothers me about the Weinstein thing and this, I had a conversation with somebody about this today about the Weinstein thing. Is when people always say everybody knew. It was Quentin Tarantino did an interview where I think it was on Joe Rogan, and he was talking about how he was like, I worked with the guy. He's like a father figure. And he goes, I knew that he was like a skirt chaser. I didn't know about the rapes and everything, but I just figured he was, and just everybody in the comments is saying that they knew, or he knew, everybody fucking knew. And I don't think that Epstein donated a lot of money to MIT, for instance. It's not like all of his life was put into fucking kids. So the idea that everybody knew, that always kind of bothered me, we all worked for a restaurant, or one of the head guys was doing some stuff. And I didn't know the degree to which he was doing it until much later, Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. But I think that's this issue, right?
AP
because
is
you hear
initials.
murmurs of this guy is just this guy or girl is not kind of be wary of them, but you don't really know what the extent of what they're doing ultimately, because usually that stuff's kind of more wraps.
clearly evil. I'm not saying it's not evil, but the idea that just everybody knew. I mean, Eric Weinstein, different guy. Weinstein, different guy from Harvey. But Eric Weinstein, Eric, you know who that is. He knew Epstein. He met him a couple times, and he said he knew him through MIT. I think. Your boy Lex. Thank you. Yeah, Lex. I don't think knew him, but he knew about his donations to that school and everything. I mean, I just think it's like a movie, though. I mean, this whole thing is like a movie. They need to make a movie on it someday when it's fleshed out a little more.
There will be, of course. That's just money to be made.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everyone's gonna know what would happen and like get all the inside scoops that they didn't have time to read or watch as it was happening, right? But I guess that's interesting for me because like it's all like the True Detective stuff. For me, it feels like where it's like all these like secret like circles and rings of like weird shit happening in the world that lots of powerful people are involved in, and this feels like what everyone was talking about is kind of like this thing, more or less. Which is weird that I think True Detective came out in 2012 or something like that, the first season.
2014.
2014, so 10 years this year.
It takes place in 2012.
That's right. That's what it is. So yeah, it just seems like it's like we all kind of knew shady shit was going on, and like the more that these like data dumps happen, the more it's kind of like we're getting more of the picture of what actually was going on, and cutting through the speculation. So I mean, I'm definitely very curious to see where this leads.
Yeah, it's the thing is that how much of it's redacted because powerful people
sure
mm-hmm.
can pay off judges and whatnot, but.